My name is R. Crosby Lyles, and this is News from the Can. It's good to be back. I kind of went on an unexpected long break. There's a lot to talk about. Anyway, I've seen Steven Greer around for a long time, but never really sort of paid that much attention. I don't know why. There's a lot of faces in the UFO world community, and he's basically just one of them. The audio-visual space can get manipulated just by volume of who crowds it out. So the nice thing about having places like YouTube and other places, the good thing about YouTube is that they do have site moderation. So they care about veracity. They care about not being gamed. I know that can be onerous to some people, or they can have a problem with it, but I don't. But because they want legitimate material to be on their site. I understand that, and that's why I stick around, frankly. Because to me, it's sooner or later, YouTube will become a place where you're pretty sure that the material that's on there is not gamed. It's not game. And there's a lot of games that can be played, psychological games. It's a very technical, slick, slippery thing, but they're not as good at it anymore. In order to really game the public, they have to have participation. And I don't believe, I don't know. I see some stuff and I wonder. I really don't know, actually, whether, what the participation is of YouTube in general on that. But they don't appear to be trying to facilitate game. Now, this is something that, and I never really watched a lot of Steven Greer. I've seen pieces and parts, and this clip here, I've seen pieces of this clip, and I've got this up for a reason. And so there were things that that I saw that sort of like dissuaded me or sort of talked me out of looking into it more, into this subject, which is Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. Now, I'm gonna get to that in a second, but basically, this is I started watching this on Logan Paul. I'd seen him some other places before, and for some reason, I don't know, I couldn't lock into it. There were things that just, I don't know, for some reason there were little indicators that bugged me. I should probably preface by saying, back in the fall of '94, I actually witnessed a UFO. And it was on Miami Beach. I made a video about this. It was on Miami Beach. I was there with a group of friends. We're all clean and sober. It's at night. There was a 30-knot blustery offshore wind blowing. And we're right on the flight path of incoming aircraft for Miami International Airport. So it's on Miami Beach. And we're hanging out. They have these cabana cushions that we were sitting on the beach, and not really many people down there. And little did I know there were some people having sex down the beach, and that's where half of our group, they were all laughing and talking, watching these people having sex on the beach. And but I didn't know what about it. And I was sitting there with a girl named Mariah, and we're looking up at the sky, and I see out of the corner of my eye what looks like a group of pelicans flying parallel to the beach, right over the water line, kind of, sort of, where we were. We were not far from the water line. They were flying right down the beach, north to south, at a 90-degree angle to this 30-knot blustery October wind. So I see this out of the corner of my eye. I'm talking to this girl, Mariah, and so out of the corner of my eye, I see this, and I kind of looked at it, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. So I looked at it, I pay a little bit more attention to it, and I noticed, well, it's kind of a chevron shape. So and then it passes over our head, and it turns, you can tell it's not a chevron, it's a disc. And the only way that you could tell that it was a disc is you could see the city, the lights from the city. There's a lot of light down there, actually, from the buildings and things. So we're talking about somewhere near Lincoln Road, a few miles from the port. So there's a lot of light down there. Somebody was having a party. Somebody released a balloon at some point. A balloon got away, and you could see that it was spiraling as it was going up. So it was very blustery. Very blustery. There was kind of there were a lot of clouds. The clouds were moving and stuff. And so anyway, this chevron reveals that it's a disc as it passed over, and it's a disc that's about 30 feet in diameter, and it was probably about 50 feet. I want to say it was probably between 50 and 60 feet over our heads. And it went by just very smoothly, kind of probably about, I don't know, maybe 30 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, something like that. Right over our heads, silently, no running lights, no nothing. You can tell it's there because you can see the city lights moving around the reflecting off of the surface as it moved, and it's a black, dark surface, and you can just see there was a little bit of reflection from the city lights just turning as it moved along, moved right over our heads from north to south, and didn't make a sound. And it was totally steady. It wasn't blustering around and doing this kind of, it was solid like a rock, moving just rock solid, moving through the sky over our heads. And so Mariah was telling me about her mom and blah 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 blah. And I'm watching this thing, and we're both laying on this beach, like back like this, leaned back, looking right up at the sky. She's talking while she's leaning. We're both looking up at the sky, and the thing passes and moves out of sight. I'm watching it the whole time, like that, and it gets out of sight, and I'm like, "Did you see that? That was really weird." And she goes, yeah. So anyway, my mom said this and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, but here's the thing. I'm like looking at this and I'm thinking it's like work for me to remember this, right? At the time. I'm like, and so the Jedi, you can feel the Jedi mind triggers. You don't need to remember this. This isn't that interesting. You can go on about your business. Don't worry about it. This is nothing unusual. This kind of thing. The Jedi, you can feel the Jedi mind trick. And, and I've told this to people. I told this to my brother, and he's like, yeah, sure you did. It's like, eyewitness testimony is almost totally worthless because it comes down to a matter of belief. So anyway, you got to have images. I mean, you got to have something that's, and better than that, you have to have images with things in the foreground with the, you know what I mean? You have to, with perspective and stuff, and there's a lot to it. Collecting evidence is a craft. Collecting video evidence is a craft. I got some stuff on my other channel about this. So anyway, here's the thing. When it comes to Steven Greer and this stuff, there's like I sense that, and it has something to do with the phone. Your phone transmits electromagnetic radiation, and your phone, spending a lot of time on your phone, this thing will has the ability, if somebody knows what they're doing programming wise, and I'm sure there are people out there that can do it, but this has a antenna, and it uses fractal, the antennas in like fractals. This may not have it, but they do make them this way. So the antennas are actually like in a fractal pattern, and it can broadcast over a number of frequencies. This is why you can turn your phone into all kinds of stuff. You can turn it into a guitar tune or whatever. But this thing right here can fuck with your mind. The phone, this electromagnetic radiation device here, can grab a hold of you, can fuck with your head. It can make you change the way you feel. Yeah. So, and that's technology that's available. And I could discuss it, but not really. There's things that I don't discuss because I don't want to give bad ideas to bad people. And in case they haven't already, you know what I mean? They're not already doing it. But, the Russians have been working on this since the 80s. Anyway, so that's a thing. But when I'm watching this and I'm trying to do things like this, discuss this, there's that Jedi. You can feel that Jedi mind thing going, sort of like suppressing my ability to communicate and think about it. And so talking about this kind of helps that. So having said that, that may be the reason why, I didn't feel like, but the things that I was being presented, I would be presented short clips. So there's a clip here when he's sitting on this chair where he breaks down and cries. And so I'd seen that clip before, but it was delivered in such a way that it's sort of like, I was like, it made me think, well, this guy's, has some emotional difficulties, or he's got some issues that he's getting over, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, of course, because I'm sure he's been through a lot. But I didn't know that much about it. I didn't know enough about it. I didn't know enough about him. And the other thing is the shoes. And this is the clip that I'd seen clips from, and I'm looking at the shoes, and for some reason, at first blush, the shoes were like, put me off. Weird, that whole judge, those who are wise will be despised if they are poor. That's from Ecclesiastes, you know what I mean? So they're beat up shoes, right? And I'm like, and the emotionalism and everything like that, and so it made me think that Steven Greer is not as professional as he really is, because the guy is he's a medical doctor and accomplished in many ways. And but the other thing too is, here's what's up with the shoes. They're comfortable shoes, and he doesn't give a fuck. That's thing one. But the other thing too is, he's an athlete. Steven Greer's an athlete. He's in his 60s. He'll put, he rides a lot, and he can bench presses 400 pounds. He's the real deal. And you can tell. When you stand there, you're like, yeah, this dude's in shape. But he's not just in shape, he's NBA in shape. So anyway, there were things that that sort of made me think, well, okay, I'm sure it's interesting, but whatever. And I'm just having to be like, and I'm trying to I've been trying to get back into creating, because there's a lot of shit to talk about. There's a lot of stuff going on, real crucial stuff going on right now. But you got to be careful about talking about it, because I don't want to give bad people bad ideas. That's something I'm very concerned about. And there are people out there, if I talk about a product, then the formulation gets changed, and shit, and some weird stuff. I'm small. Look, I'm small time, but I pissed some people off already. And what I'd really like to know from Dr. Greer is, I'd really like some feedback about the material that I've done, the rapid onset ice age and stuff like that. He might not be able to talk about it. So, but, one-on-one or whatever, if you could send me a message, would be interesting. So, and I've seen him here and there. But, unless I see some really crisp evidence, something that's compelling, then I'm just, it's an avalanche of material out there. There's an avalanche of material that's constantly coming at you. You have to be stern about screening out the horse shit, right? So here's the thing, right? I bought this. I paid the $9.99 to buy this, and I looked at his app, or their app, I should say, the CE5 app. But here's the thing that's kind of weird. I saw this, and this is Logan Paul, Impulsive. So these guys on here are kids. And the thing about it is that Dr. Greer is super serious. He's a real great guy, incredible human being. Just love this guy to death. Seriously, awesome dude. I'm gonna get misty here. So these animals on here, you know, they're cracking up and talking about having sex with the aliens and stuff like that. By the way, everybody thinks about it. Everybody like talks about it. I've thought about that myself. I wonder what that would be weird. And he says that. He says, you'd be like a pervert, man. Come on, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Because they bring up this stupid stuff and interrupt them and stuff like that. But even through all of that crap, through all of that noise, it starts clicking, starts making sense how long he's been around, you know, how long he's been doing this. I mean, he started doing transcendental meditation. He had a near-death experience. He started doing transcendental meditation back in 1973 when he was like 17 or 18 years old. And then he starts, I'm under the impression that he worked with Russell Targ, Dr. Russell Targ, with remote viewing, you know, because that was in the 80s. That was a Reagan administration thing. They started doing remote viewing, and that all involves transcendental meditation and stuff like that. And then, so the way he got into the UFO thing is because he got good at calling the extraterrestrials, and they would show up. He'd call them, and they'd show up. And so the military became interested. And then he got involved with Bill Clinton because Bill Clinton had seen a UFO. And Bill Clinton, and not just Bill Clinton, but Bill Clinton, Jimmy Carter, asked the powers that be. Jimmy Carter apparently asked George H.W. Bush when he was the director of the CIA as he was leaving from the Ford administration, said, hey, man, what about UFOs? And Ford basically said, blew him off. So, you know, they would tell him, you don't have the clearance for that. I think they told Clinton, you don't have the clearance. Sorry. And, you know, this is stuff that I've heard, sort of, but didn't really process. There's a lot of stuff that I've heard and seen that I didn't really process because the gears have to, they have to be properly, they have to engage, right? So there's something about Steven Greer on this show with these women fucking around, and you could see from his frustration, from Dr. Greer's frustration and stuff, this thread of emotional realities coming through. You know, and he's talking about people who have been, you know, who have been killed and stuff, and people who have committed suicide and all this stuff, and involved in what he was doing. And he's telling his story, and I'm listening to him, and I'm saying, holy shit. All of a sudden it clicks. He's not bullshitting. It's not bullshit. It's real. He's not bullshitting. But, you know, there's certain things that you try to reach, that you try to touch, and depending on who you are or whatever, that there's a field. There's a field that sort of Jedi mind tricks you. It's like you can feel pressure. You don't need to think about this. You can do something else. You can go somewhere else and do something else. You don't need to worry about this. It's real shit. ESP, you can feel that pressure. Oh, you don't, this is pushing you away. It's making it difficult. So I might have been the victim of some of that or whatever, but for they're you know, being judgmental, because the first thing that I saw, and when he was crying, I thought, wow, this is an emotional guy. This guy got emotional difficulties, and you know, he's going through some stuff, you know, I don't know, midlife crisis, blah, 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 you know, judgmental. And I looked at his shoes and I said, you know, because I'm like, oh, he doesn't have money, you know, it's like, oh, you know, trying to put together a few bucks or something, you know, blah, blah, blah. But I hadn't seen the whole story. This long, voluminous, effectual history that you will see if just, you know, you can watch this video here, and it's tragic, you know. Towards the end, I would say like around an hour in, somewhere like that, they actually let him talk long enough, because he's trying to, I think that he feels like his veracity is being called into question, or he's, they're just playing with him, and it's pissing him off. And so, this guy would snap you. Dr. Greer, he's a gentle soul, but I'll tell you what, I have a feeling if he got on his wrong side, he'd just snap you in half. But anyway, he's getting annoyed, but he's the way he's powering through, so he's, he's pushing back on that, and all of a sudden it just, I'm watching this, and I almost clicked away. I almost clicked away, and then all of a sudden I said, no, wait. There was something that just said, wait for a second. And all of a sudden, I don't know exactly what it was said, but it just dawned on me, wait a second. There are things that let you know, because we've, and he's describing all the people out there that are, and I talk about operators on my channel a lot, because this is a thing on YouTube. YouTube, for a while, I don't know if it is anymore, because there's a lot of other, there's TikTok and other things out there. Facebook, and shit is big, huge. But there are other operators, because YouTube for a long time was like PR Central, how you get right to the people, and this is what Dr. Greer is trying to do, is trying to get people to make you. There's a way. The fifth kind is where you contact the extraterrestrials, and there's a method. There's a way, and you can use your mind. ESP. You can use your mind to communicate, to bring them into your space. He talks about the rule of 100. Like if 100 seagulls learn how to pick a crab out of a hole with a stick, when that 100th seagull learns how to do it, they all know how to do it. It's called the rule of 100. And he talks about it, and he talks about a 10% or a tenth of a percent or something like that. 10%, when 10% of the population learns something, that everybody learns it. It's called the rule of 100. I don't know if he doesn't really say that's what it is, I don't think. But that's what it's called. So he says that all we have to do is for like 1% of the population groks this, understands this, that the extraterrestrials are real. We can make contact with them. They're in our space, and they're peaceful, that we are the fucking assholes, and that nuclear war is bad. When 1%, I think, get that, really understand that, then the whole population understands it. Then the ability of the gamers and the special operations psyops people can't mind fuck you out of the truth anymore. So, and this I see, YouTube, I see it all the time. It's real slick. So what I'm saying is the images that I saw of Dr. Greer from different places were chosen probably specifically to get me to look away, to discount whatever he had to say. But on this piece right here, even though these Illuminati are like totally, they let him speak. They actually had a segment in the very beginning, this part right here, where he spoke for a couple of minutes, and that's when I was hooked. And then it was annoying that they were interrupting him with the childish stuff, and it was annoying. But he powered through that, and then so I got hooked. I started listening to him, and then there was another thing that I saw. Patrick Bet David is the guy's name. So this is the next thing. But I watched the whole Logan Paul, an hour and 23 minutes long. It's long. And I watched the whole thing. And I was annoyed. I got annoyed there for a minute. I heard just enough, and then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I want to hear more. And then all of a sudden I'm mesmerized, and I'm like, with these guys, I'm like, get out of here. Let me hear I just wanted to hear what he had to say. I just wanted to hear unvarnished, unbroken, I want to hear the man tell a story. So I was able to hear enough of it, and I watched a whole hour and 23 minutes. And then went and found this thing. Classified alien encounters revealed by Traumatologist. And thankfully, Patrick just let him talk. Didn't interrupt him. He like wanted clarification a couple of times, and he said, "Nah, fuck it, just let him talk." Yeah, just let him talk. That's what you need to do. And all the people that he's been involved with and connected with and knows and stuff like that, and then he's dishing on, you know, who is who, and who exactly is spinning narrative and how they're doing it. That's what really grabbed me, because from doing my shit on YouTube, the misinformation, disinformation, mindfuck thing, leading up to Donald Trump, and all those guys, Michael Flynn and all that stuff, doing propaganda in churches, which is how the CIA used to go in, and they would infiltrate labor movements and things like that around the world, especially in Africa, and they would infiltrate churches and start figuring out how the culture worked. They would infiltrate different cultures and figure out how to produce civil wars. This is something that was done. This is a technique the CIA used for years through the 50s, 60s, 70s, so on. And they would prop up right-wing totalitarian regimes because they're the most pliable. You can get the most out of them. And then if you have a dictator that's dictator for life, it's a lot easier to deal with a dictator. If you're, somebody who's trying to rape the earth for mineral resources, it's a lot easier to deal with a dictator for life than it is to deal with, a democratic group of people, who are able to analyze and evaluate what you're doing and how much what you're trying to get is worth, and trying to get what what they should really get for their minerals. It's easier to deal with a dictator who you just pay them a fraction of what you would have to pay if the people were really savvy. It's that's what they call a resource curse in Africa. Well, that's what America has, is resource curse. So they're trying to pop up a dictator for life here, meet Donald Trump, so that they don't have to deal with regulations and things like that. They can, Civil War, one of the nice things that Civil War does, I made a video about this a while back, called Failure as a Method. If you have a civil war that lowers the price of real estate, if you want something underneath the ground, it's a lot easier to get. Like Florida has a big stretch of titanium sand. So if you got big nice houses on waterfront property on top of that titanium, it's going to be a whole lot more expensive to try to get it. Then if you turn the fucking place into a war zone, all of a sudden the real estate, it ain't worth shit. You can drill, and nobody cares about it. Civil war is a technique to get, it's all manufactured. Crazy and stupid in America is all manufactured. These crazy people who are believe crazy shit, all that stuff is manufactured. Fox News does it right in front of your face. They do it right in front of your face in broad daylight. When they're doing it in broad daylight in your face, and they say things like, Kellyanne Conway says, alternative facts, it's in your face. When it's in your face, man, you are right near the precipice. You know what I mean? We're just got pulled right back from the edge. And fascists, and that's what he started talking about. It's the fascists. It's the hydrocarbon fascists. So, side note. So that's how I started watching them. And it's legitimate. It's legitimate stuff. There's a lot of focus on global warming and things like that. But side note, one of the reasons we got to get rid of coal, we got to quit burning coal around the world. Now you've got clean coal where they actually scrub the shit, the trash out of the smoke. That's good. That's good. But then you end up with giant piles of coal ash, huge, incredible, ridiculous, gargantuan amounts of coal ash, and coal ash that has thallium, but principally, thallium and other stuff, but principally, and the thing that we have the big problem with is mercury, right? So global warming or climate change is bad. It's bad enough. But goddamn mercury is persistent in the food chain. Mercury is a neurotoxin, and it's probably mutagenic. And other things like cadmium and lead and shit. But mercury, because of the nature of what it is, was it methyl mercury, something like that. But anyway, it gets into the food chain. And then it's real hard to get it out of the food chain. It takes a long time for it to work its way back out of the food chain. It's like they tell you, you can't. They tell you, pregnant women, to avoid eating fish. And we know where it comes from. It comes from burning coal, and I think it also comes from fertilizer. So I'm like, well, how the fuck? There's because coal ash is also being packaged and sold as like an additive to soil, and I think it's to raise the pH of the soil. But coal ash, I'm like, wow, really? You really want to put that on your garden? I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's some coal ash that's pretty good, or maybe they can do something where they can wash it out. But the shit you're washing out is, like literally coal is because it's carbon. It's like activated carbon they give you to detox yourself. If you've eaten some poison, they give you some activated carbon because it sucks that shit up, and then you pass it out of your body, right? So all these seams of coal have being in the ground and the water passing through the ground, that they've absorbed all of this, everything from uranium to lead to mercury, thallium, you name it. It's in there, and when you burn the coal, you release all that shit. You know what I'm saying? So that's, to me, a bigger reason not to burn coal. More important reason not to burn coal is because of how goddamn polluting and toxic it is. So, there, I got that out. So, but one of the things that he talks about is giving the ability to get a hold of this paradigm, putting that in the hands of the people, and all you have to do is use your ability to meditate and communicate with your intentions, with your intent, and so it's cool stuff. It's awesome. Like I said, I went and then I went and bought this just so I could get the whole, and I had to stop watching because I had other shit to do. Then I'd been watching this stuff all day, but I basically watched the whole thing. Pretty much, I was mesmerized by the entire. Once I heard enough of the man's story, heard him talking, heard him say enough things that that are true. Enough dots got connected, and I was totally mesmerized. And then this, forget about it. Closing Encounters of the Fifth Kind. They've got some really compelling footage, and they're doing it. They're doing it for real. And I would watch it. I recommend it. And I'd started. It's funny that I saw this because I had started working on an idea because the water around Florida is polluted with nitrogen, but principally phosphate, but it's from fertilizer. It's from agriculture and cow shit. So, but there's a way to get that stuff out of the water. Just, we just have to clean the fucking water. That's all there is to it. So, and the idea that I had is to put that in the hands of ordinary people, getting a way for ordinary people to clean the water. And I got to flesh that out a little bit, but it's really actually pretty simple. Those pollutants get into the ocean through rivers and streams and things. So it's kind of sort of straightforward. You know, I mean, ordinary people who live along those stretches of water could potentially clean that water. I'm going to work on that a little bit, and I'll get back to you on it. But this is something that that has to be done. Just has to be done. In closing, what we have as a species, as a planet, that's valuable around the universe, but our greatest resource, the thing that we have the most, that's hardest to find around the universe, if you're an extraterrestrial, because an extraterrestrial can go to moons of Saturn and Jupiter or whatever and get all the hydrocarbons, methane, or minerals, forget about it. I mean, just go and collect up a few rocks from space. It's probably got all the shit you ever would need to make whatever you want to make. But what we have on Earth is we have a large ocean full of protein, full of naturally grown protein. Fish that have, through evolution and whatever, have sort of kept their gene pool, the DNA stock, the chromosome stock is good in the oceans. This vast amounts of protein in the oceans. That's pretty fucking valuable. And we're busily poisoning this shit with mercury. You know what I'm saying? It's like, dude, our biodiversity is our treasure. The biodiversity of this planet. Yeah, I guarantee you, they're not really here for us that much, because we're busily destroying this shit with forever chemicals and everything else. And that's the thing. Climate change is not good, but mercury might be worse. And another one that's worse is sulfur, H2SO4. Anything that turns into sulfuric acid is bad news for the planet. That's a climate change driver right there. And I did a little bit of a video about that before. So anyway, this is I was mesmerized by this entire thing. Once the gear was allowed to click into place, and I was able to realize, hey, it has something to do with the history, that the history and the emotional reality that he brings to it. That, oh wow, this guy really, he's for real. This is real shit. This is his real experience over the past 50 years. This isn't bullshit. And it's history that that I've sort of been able to see from the outside, and so I know that he knows what he's talking about. And I'm still, I'm looking for the hook. Because you never know. I mean, he could just be the slickest, charlatan on the planet. But, I don't get that. I don't read that from the guy. So the shoes was sort of a detractor from the beginning, because it's pretty casual. But then after I'd seen him talk and stuff like that, then it became an endearing quality. Now, they somehow or another they symbolize something else. They symbolize somebody who doesn't give a fuck, who's just for real. As soon as that might be somebody else's instantaneous thing. But for some reason, when I first saw that, there was an image play. That's what I'm saying, is that there was image play of other people talking about him in this room, in this image right here. There was some image play with this that sort of dissuaded me from digging into it. The Logan Paul thing ain't great, but somehow or another it worked. Somehow or another watching that. And it might not work for me, because I almost turned it off. I almost clicked away. And something made me stick around, because he was getting emotional, and Steven Greer was getting emotional. But at some point, when I bore through just to pat this certain point, that allowed the gears to connect. And so it's worth looking into this. If you got the $9 or the $10 to plunk down for Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. I mean, it's all uncut. It's, you know, or just get whatever you can go to see the, or watch this thing here. This is what you really want to watch. Actually, at first blush, because if I can remember his name, Patrick here, lets him talk. Let's Dr. Greer talk, and that's what you need to hear. But I don't know. There was something about this. If you can just bear through the childishness of these guys a little bit, you know, and I don't understand that's their coin, that's their thing, you know. I don't, you know, that's their thing. Okay, whatever. But if you can bear through that, you know, or maybe even, you know, sort of skip over the dumb stuff. It's hearing it. He's able to tell enough of his story in there. That it'll grab you, you know. It's compelling. This is the most compelling thing that I've come across probably ever, and that's saying a lot. But it's at the top. It's at the top. And God bless him. Godspeed. You know, I was really going to keep this down to 5 minutes, but it didn't pan out like that. So anyway, that's it. That's all I got. It looks like YouTube's the long form place now. Anyway, so it's all good. I gotta talk about later on the Honga Tonga Apai volcano blew a whole bunch of stuff, water vapor and material, is all the way up into the mesosphere. So we're going to talk about that sometime later, and with some analysis, because that's what you really need to see is the analysis. But I just wanted to get, because I got to make a video. I haven't made a video in a while, and I sort of like lost my rhythm. That's all I got. Thanks for letting me share. But no, it's really good. It's, you know, I mean, a lot of people out there are, you know, big fans. And of course, because it's compelling stuff, and this, you know, Steven Greer is just this awesome dude. Just totally awesome. You know, and I have tools. You know what I mean? You can go to bypass the middleman. You can go direct. Go direct to ET. You know? And the more of us that do that, the sooner, the better it'll be. And that's all I got. My name is R. Crosby Lyles. Thanks for watching. See ya.